focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. Well, happy Wednesday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on the Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, and today we are going to be talking economics. So we're going to be talking about the theory of constraint economics, independent verification of Austrian economics. With me today, Jorge Gonzalez Moore. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Brian, very much. So pleased that you are having me in your program. Thanks.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me today, and definitely appreciate you being so quick to turn things around. I sent an email, my time this morning, it was around 5 or so in the morning. You responded quite promptly, and here we are. It's 10 o'clock your time. God bless.
Yes.
You're recording. I was late because I had a call, went a little bit over for the day job, so I already was walking in here with my tail between my legs, but you are joining us today because you're bringing a lot of value in terms of approaching Austrian economics and making it very tangible in terms of making things actionably better, especially when we're talking about where we see some of the problems right now, especially in our economic system. But before we get there, Jorge, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the Brian Nichols Show audience. So who are you and what brought you into this world discussing theory of constraint economics here on the Brian Nichols Show?
Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me. And well, my name is Jorge Gonzalez Moore. I am an engineer. And since I was in university, I learned theory of constraints. I have to say that I actually forgot about it until I was then working in different companies. And then you sense that things, especially if the company is quite large, things don't always go the way it should. You intuitively know something's wrong, something doesn't make sense. So I went back to the books and to study. So in essence, and just to give a bit of context, what theory of constraints is, or TOC as it is commonly called, in essence, is maybe people that have studied some statistics, they will be knowledgeable of something called the Pareto principle, which is what they call the 80-20 rule, or the important few and trivial many. So, and that is very true to independent variables. However, what theory of constraints does is to realize that for dependent variables, which is a system, any system, and a company is a system, and if you want to look at economics, that is a system. So the criticality is much larger. So who created theory of constraints? A physicist by the name of Eliyahu Goldratt. So he came up with this idea, and through the years, him and of course all of his collaborators and people that have studied theory of constraints have come with different solutions for things, or for areas in any company having to do with operations, sales, projects, etc. So what are the key things to understand about theory of constraints? And if I have to define theory of constraints in one word, as Goldratt defined it, is basically focus. And if you have to define it in two words, is focus and leverage. So the whole point is that if you have a system, and it is even more critical when you have dependent variables, it is not that 20% of your causes will have 80% of the effects. The effect is actually much larger. So in essence, 0.1% of your causes will have 99.9% of your effects. So this has a profound meaning, in essence, because it tells you it tells you that you need to focus, and also on what or where to focus. And it is tied to the scientific method because it implies the cause and effect causality, so understanding what causes what, and also it gives a sense that any system is actually simple if you understand the system, of course. If not, well, you don't know the causality, you don't know the cause and effect, so you will start believing that it's quite complex, which is usually what you get from any person when asked about a company or a system or a process. Oh, that's complex. And it's complex because we don't understand the causality. But once we get there, it gets much, much simpler. So what I've done in my professional career is, well, try to apply theory constraints, but I've always been surprised why it is not taken more seriously, if you like. So my determination was, well, why don't we try to solve using this tool something that we all see every day? And well, the economy is something that we all need to endure every day. And if we can do that, then, well, people will start paying more attention to TOC, but also they would start understanding where they actually live. And that's where I came to study economics, and of course, Austrian economics. And I think that for those of you who see the program, you understand the difference when anybody says Austrian economics and not just Keynesian economics or something else, which is, in my opinion, not actually economics. So, so I don't know, Barry, if you have any opinion on that, but that's that's how I believe we should see it. It should be Austrian economics. But anyway, so theory of constraints has many tools. So it has the 5 focusing steps. It has the current reality tree, future reality tree. So the one I picked for this paper, and actually the paper is based on a book I wrote last year, is the current reality tree. So the whole point of the current reality tree is for you to list all what we would call problems, but in reality is undesirable effects. And this is the thing. In theory constraints, as you have a system and you need to understand the system, what you want to understand is what is the core problem or the constraint of the system. And all the rest are just undesirable effects of that fundamental constraint or fundamental core problem. So the way I came or I started working was, okay, let's start listing all the undesirable effects that we see in our daily life dealing with economics. And so the starting point is to list those set of symptoms. And then, well, the end result, if we're able to find the causality between each of those symptoms, should be the core problem. And that's where we need to focus if we want to find a solution. And that is called, well, trying to propose a direction of the solution. So what I did was to list what we see day in, day out. I mean, what do we see in the economy as it's run by all the states, all the governments? We see bailouts. We see the bank loans creating money basically out of thin air. We see a reduction in capitalization rates. We see a misallocation of capital, a depletion of natural resources, corruption, erosion of institutionality. We see inflation. We see instability, injustice, less freedom, no hard money. I mean, so I listed all of this. And when you try to go about finding the cause and effect for each of these, or trying to tie them together to see what causes what, the core problem that I found, which actually is just, and that's why I call it an independent verification of Austrian economics, because something that the Austrian economists have already said is, look, the issue is that we don't have a hard money. So the money is state owned. And because of that, you cannot actually save the fruit of your honest work. And without that, you are changing people's time preference. Also, because money is state owned, well, the government can decide who you transact with or not. They can decide the interest rate. They can always print more money. They can create it out of nothing in order to finance, well, anything or everything that needs to be financed. And also, each intervention that the government does, as you see it in that current reality tree, only causes further issues, further troubles, further problems. So what's the direction of the solution? If we understand that that's the core problem, that money is state-owned, well, the direction of the solution, in my opinion, is to assign property rights. So the only way that you can get a hard money is that you assign the property rights to that hard money, meaning that it cannot be seized, it cannot be taken away from you, and you can actually keep the honest fruit of your work. And well, the solution is already available. It exists, in my opinion, is Bitcoin. It's decentralized. It can be a reserve of value. You can carry it anywhere. You can transfer it, well, almost instantaneously. So I think that this approach of using TOC, it's beneficial because it's a way of understanding the system dynamics. And again, TOC is nothing more than system dynamics, understanding the system, understanding how it works, and then because you understand how it works, well, where should you focus all your effort if you want to make a change? So in a nutshell, that's basically what the book is about and what the paper is about. And about the paper, well, I want to make a contribution to the body of knowledge of TOC. So this is a draft. So I'm working on it. I have received both positive feedback, but I also received some very harsh critics. But all the criticism that I received, I'm always I always review that criticism, and it's because there is no actual understanding of Austrian economics, and people have, I mean, they are more like living in the Keynesian world, if you like, rather than on a proper review of what human action is, which is, I mean, for me, the economy is nothing more than, or it is the human action, and is the preference of each individual. It's about those social cooperation of people specializing in what they do, and of course, it only works if you can guarantee private property, and of course, your first private property is your life. Also, if there is equal treatment under the law. I mean, those are fundamental things that we need to have, well, for if we want to continue progress. And maybe just a bit of context about the book. The book is also about explaining where we come from as a civilization, because usually people are saying, well, times are bad, everything is going wrong. But if you go 200 years ago, I mean, life was really bad. And if you go 1,000 years ago, it was miserable. So it is about understanding where we come from, what has been the basic or fundamental things that happened 200 years ago that enable humanity to become richer, wealthier, and not just about money, because you can measure it in longevity, health. I mean, those are things that have improved tremendously in the past 200 years, 100 years, 50 years. But what has been the underlying causes for that to happen? Well, again, that some people were able to preserve the fruit of their honest work. They were able to invest that. They were able to save. They were able to keep their initiative in order to produce more goods, more services at a better price for all the other people, and of course trading with each other in order, well, to get where we are. So that's basically it.
That's basically it. Why I wrote down a lot of notes there, so don't worry. I've been like keeping up here as I'm in school. So the one thing I circled, and I hear a lot of similarities, especially in the world of sales, and obviously we bridge the world here, right? With the Brian Nichols Show, we talk about bringing the world of sales and marketing to the world of politics, focusing on what? Not winning arguments, but winning hearts and minds. And we do that by focusing on what are people's core problems. We start off by asking questions, figuring out, really peeling back that onion. What is the core issue that is driving the person to be in whatever situation that they're in, whatever problem they are facing, and then to be able to build that solution. But I always use the analogy, it's like going to the doctors. Your doctor doesn't go in and you say, okay, I'm sick, and here's what's wrong, and they just give you a pill. No, they're going to ask you some questions. They're going to ask those questions to figure out specifically what symptoms you're experiencing and maybe what's causing those symptoms, so they can have a better diagnosis. And that's what you're doing here. And that's frankly what we need to have done when it comes to actually talking about economics and bringing it to the real world. And you started off and you mentioned this, making it simple. And I talk about this all the time. I'm in the world of technology sales. That's why I was late for our call today, because I had a call that went over. And one of the most difficult things is taking oftentimes very complex cybersecurity solutions or complex business continuity solutions and making them easy to understand for your average person. Because unfortunately, a lot of the folks that I'm speaking to, it's a one or two shop person house for IT. One guy, he's going to be focusing more on the strategic. The other guy's more on the operational. But neither's maybe a cybersecurity pro. So it's being able to take this and make it simple and show not only why it makes more sense to talk about it with us, but then to show how we can help make them have a better future, build that real reality and make it real. And one of the things that you brought up here, and as I was going through and reading your paper here, the overarching theme that seems to be the best news that we can look forward to is the reason we've seen the advancement of right now freedom, and really this is the culmination of technology, and the fact that we have Bitcoin as the means to really get away from this fiat government money. That's been the ultimate almost launching off point to have now this become almost a reality, where before it was more, well, this could be nice if we could have some form of private money. Now it's there, and now to your point, it's all because of the technology advancing. Where else can this go? And that's the thing. I think we, as a group of liberty lovers out there, we can start to build the conversation on the offensive. This is where we are today, 2022. The technology is advancing exponentially. What's it going to do to help us advance freedom across the board with technologies we don't even know exist yet?
Absolutely. So I think you're spot on. I mean, this has been possible with the technological advances. And technological advances occur only, again, if we are able to free people to take the endeavors that they need to take. And those endeavors, freedom, liberty, at the end of the day, is just one side of a coin that on the other side has accountability. So you're free, but you're accountable of the decisions and the consequences of those decisions. And that's what I think entrepreneurs and people that take initiative do understand very well. They do take the risk, they measure the benefits, but they carry the costs if things don't go well. But thanks to them is that we have been improving technology to a place where actually now you can have a reserve of value that goes in your pocket. So who would have thought about that? 20 years ago. Some people were thinking of it, but they had not yet realized that. So yeah, technology is fundamental, and the only way to keep improving technology is by making sure that the incentive for people to create, develop, and keep and make that technology available is there. So if the incentive is not there, well, it's going to be quite tricky, or yet close to impossible, that we'll see technological advances.
Yep. Well, and that's why, we see folks out there like Elon Musk, and there's a reason he's not only the richest man in the world, but probably one of the most popular, or at least, the most hated, I guess, because he is the most popular people in the world. And he's been able to do that because he's been able to amass technological advancements for society. I mean, Tesla and SpaceX alone, they're going to be massive in terms of their impact on humanity and the other pet projects he's working on behind the scenes. Oh, and by the way, he's talking about trying to buy Twitter. That whole conversation. Now you're seeing there is, the desire to use the technology to advance us forward. But to your point, it only goes to the extent when we actually have a means that people see the value in making that investment. And I think you talked about the people who we should be targeting. And that's frankly why we took a hard turn here at the Brian Nichols Show to start talking more to business owners, entrepreneurs, because those are the people who are our natural target market. Those are the people who we can speak to and communicate with because they're speaking our language. I had on the program, the gentleman's name is escaping me at the top of my head right now, but it was the for Austrian School of Economics, Mises Institute. It was Economics for Business. And it was a great conversation because what they're doing is giving business owners a real tangible playbook that they can take forward in trying to build their companies, build their businesses. And with that, it's all based on Austrian economics. So that's that. And by the way, it's a great episode, folks. Go check that out over at briannicholsshow.com. But with that being said, I think we are seeing right now that there is a renewed interest in talking about economics, especially when the world's on fire. And we just printed, what was it, $6.5 something trillion of the past 2 years. So people are waking up to inflation and economic realities being a thing. And now I think it's better, no better time than now to go ahead and present our alternative. And with that being said, you mentioned it. You have a book. It was The Theory of Constraints. The Theory of Constraint Economics, Reality, Freedom, and Progress. And that's available over on Amazon right now. Where can folks beyond that, if they want to learn more, continue the conversation with you, but also obviously check out Theory of Constraint Economics?
Thanks. Yes. So the book is the expansion of the paper. So, and I just want to mention a couple of things. So where do I see us in the future? Well, I'm the only thing I would say about the future, because nobody knows what the future would be, but what I would say is that if we are able to make sure that people can preserve, so that money is privately owned, so that it gets the property rights for the fruit of the honest work of anybody, those property rights can be assigned to that person, and we have that real hard money, and also hopefully at some point real hard real estate, then the future, I can tell you, is going to be much better than we can imagine. I don't know what's going to be, but it's going to be much better than we can imagine. And to the point of inflation, if you think about it, if the government had to reduce taxes in the same proportion as the government generates inflation, well, the taxes would be minus infinite by now. So inflation, I think, is the harshest tax that we have to endure. And especially because, and also it is really hard on the people that have less, because it affects the people that have less the most, because they are the ones that are less protected against any variation of the prices. And usually what we hear about inflation is that inflation has many causes. But if that were true, well, they would need to prove that you can have inflation in a barter economy. And I think that nobody can prove that. So just to keep in mind, when somebody tells you that inflation has many causes, well, not really. As Friedman said, inflation is always and everywhere the consequence of increasing the money supply.
We're feeling it now. And your average person is seeing it where? At the grocery store and at the gas pump, two places you really can't escape it. All right, Jorge, unfortunately, we are already hard pressed here for time. So if folks want to go ahead and continue the conversation, where can they go ahead and do that?
Thank you.
No, where can they go ahead and continue the conversation with you if they want to go ahead and get in touch?
Sorry.
Where could folks go ahead and get in touch with you if they want to go ahead and continue the conversation?
Apologies. I thought they were going to get in touch right now. So I was waiting for the questions. If they want to write to me, my email is j.gonzm@hotmail.com. Also, as you mentioned, my book is in Amazon, Theory Constraints Economics. So if you want to give it a read, any feedback, very, very much appreciated. Just let's keep the conversation open. I'm always quite looking forward to discussing these subjects with anyone. If somebody wants to learn about theory of constraints, I can also point you about some very interesting books.
There you go. All right, folks. What we'll do is we'll include those links in the show notes, make it super easy for you. All you got to do, hit the artwork at your podcast catcher. It'll bring you right to briannicholsshow.com, where you can find today's episode, the entire transcript of today's episode. Yes, all those links we mentioned. Plus, you can find the book, Theory of Constraint, Economics, Reality, Freedom, and Progress. Please go ahead and give it a purchase. When you do, go ahead, let Jorge know that Brian Nichols sent you there. And by the way, folks, if you enjoyed the episode, please do me a favor, go ahead and give it a share. And when you do, go ahead and give me a tag at B Nichols Liberty. Well, with that being said, folks, it's Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Jorge Gonzalez Moore. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.